Let's bring in Mark Brewer, the chairman of the Michigan Democratic Party, who had a big weekend in Detroit and is nice enough to bring in this morning. Good morning to you, sir.
Morning, Michael Patrick.
Well, you've probably been hearing a lot of this conjecture on the air this morning. Nolan Finley was on, Bob Colt was on. We've also talked to Kyle Malin from MERS, and there seems to be a sort of a consensus, at least among the pundits, that Mayor Bernero asked a lot of people to run with him and that nobody wanted to run with him. And so by default, because he was running out of time, he had to pick another mayor, the mayor of Southfield, Brenda Lawrence, and that she doesn't really add anything to the ticket, but she doesn't hurt him. What do you make of all that conjecture?
Well, first of all, Michael Patrick, all these so-called pundits have a tremendous history of getting a lot of things wrong. Most of those folks thought Virg Bernero would never win the Democratic primary. Bob Colt, among others, predicted Cliff Taylor would win in a landslide 2 years ago. So I think a lot of your so-called pundits don't have a lot of credibility. Now, Brenda Lawrence is an historic pick, not just for the Democratic Party, but for the entire state of Michigan, the first African-American lieutenant governor candidate by any major candidate. That is a huge, huge addition to the ticket. She's very well qualified. She's done a tremendous job. She's a three-term mayor of the city of Southfield, where, like Virg Bernero, she's balanced budgets in very tough times. She's a Lansing outsider. So now we have two outsiders at the top of our ticket who can run against, the mess in Lansing. And I think I'm very pleased with the ticket. It was not the case at all that she was somehow the only pick left or the last pick. That's a lot of Republican spin that is designed to do just that, provide spin.
Well, one of the things I found curious that Bob Colt said a few minutes ago was that she hasn't been vetted by the press and that we're uncertain as to whether there might be some skeletons. What in the world did he mean by that?
I don't know. I mean, Bob Colt is frankly, again, lacks all credibility when it comes to these kinds of matters. Brenda Lawrence has been running for elections. She served on the school board in Southfield. She served on the city council. She's run for mayor. If there were any problems with her, they would have come out and been dug up by the press long, long ago. Mm-hmm. She's a terrific public official. She is scandal-free. Not a hint of anything wrong with her. The campaign thoroughly vetted her. So this whole nonsense that there might be some skeleton in her closet is pure speculation by Bob Colt and has no basis in fact.
Were there any surprises at your convention this weekend? Any highlights?
No surprises. It was a very upbeat, organized convention. In contrast to the chaotic convention run by the Republicans, I think there's some doubt about who the Republican nominees are. When you don't have ballots so delegates can vote, how can you say that's a legitimate election? When you have to let thousands of people into the convention because you don't have a credentials process, how can you be sure who is legitimately picked? So we had a very orderly, enthusiastic convention. Great enthusiasm for the ticket. We have a group of highly qualified individuals, Michael Patrick, who look like Michigan, black, white, male, female, urban, suburban, representative of all parts of the state. I think if people look at our ticket, they will see a ticket that really does look like and represent Michigan in contrast to the Republican ticket.
And we're going to have a female Secretary of State again, one way or another, huh? Both candidates are female.
Both candidates are female. And again, I think that's another example of, they've run another political insider, somebody who was part of the Lansing establishment before she became clerk. And there's a lot of terrible things that she did in terms of votes while she was in the legislature. And I think when voters take a look at a fresh face like Jocelyn Benson, they're going to very much prefer to go in that direction.
Ruth Johnson is the 55-year-old from Holly that the Republicans have nominated for Secretary of State. Jocelyn Benson is 32 years old, a law professor from Wayne State University, who I'm told already has written a book about the job of Secretary of State.
No, she's done a lot of good work in that regard. She's talked to Democrats and Republicans around the country about best practices in terms of Secretary of State's offices, and she intends to bring those best practices to that office. I think she's going to be a real breath of fresh air in that office and bring a lot of innovations that are long overdue and put Michigan back up front in terms of being a place where we have election reforms. We used to be, Michael Patrick, a real model for the rest of the country in terms of how we run our election system. And under the last two Republican secretaries of state, we have fallen way, way behind other states in terms of allowing people to vote without having to give a reason, vote by absentee, making it easier for people to vote. Jocelyn Benson will make that happen.
What is the strategy or maybe the platform via which Verge Bernero could actually win the general election on November 2nd?
Well, I think it's very straightforward, Michael Patrick. I mean, nobody laid a glove on Rick Snyder during the primary. He got away with talking about, how he's a successful businessman. Well, I'll tell you, his only success has been a personal success. He made tens of millions of dollars while outsourcing tens of thousands of American jobs overseas and stiffing the other shareholders at Gateway Computer. So we're going to tell the story this fall about how Rick Snyder made his money. It wasn't by creating jobs, it was by destroying jobs and destroying Gateway Computer. And then Verge Bernero has got to go out and tell the story of his success as mayor of Lansing. Creating 6,000 jobs, leveraging $500 million in investment, getting labor and management to work together. He's the one who's actually been a success and can bring that successful model to the state capitol. If we tell both those stories, Verge Bernero can win this election.
All right, I'm going to switch to Mayor Bernero right now, the Democratic candidate for governor, and you travel safely. We'll talk again soon.